install this and that and the other, right? The first version of our system is never the best one. Sales is just another process to iterate, and so is your QBR. The QBR is just a function of that customer relationship, which includes some sales tactics and some sales content. And if we do it right, we can do it in a way that doesn't feel like a sleazy sales guy. And that's my goal for every MSP, because most MSPs don't want to do QBRs because it's uncomfortable. The customers are tired of them, I'm knocking on the door. Not, it's time to meet. Okay, here's a stack of invoices for stuff I'd like you to buy. I closed some tickets, I did some stuff and things that justifies my existence. Thanks, I'm out of here, right? So what we've really been working on and what I've really been developing, the problem I've been trying to solve for years, is to take an account manager, whether they're technical or whether they're non-technical, let them go out and see a customer and meet with that customer and have an interaction that is positive both for the account manager and their company and for the client and their company, right? And I think there is some happy medium to be had there. And the Captain Obvious thing is a little entertaining. A couple weeks ago at an event, I stood on stage as Captain Obvious and did this pitch similar to this one in a Captain Obvious suit. So you got to make fun of Halloween. You got to have it both ways. So what we're trying to solve for at Lifecycle Insights really is take all the data that's stuck in your tools and pull it out and make it usable and actionable to your customers, right? But first, before we dive into all of this, I want to talk about why you're here, right? This is what's in it for me. This is kind of a favorite of mine. It's in pink because it's a reminder that it was actually, this was actually stolen out of a slide that Marnie did yesterday. But our CEO did a piece on customer success, that thing, yesterday. But it was pitched as women in technology, so it got a very different room than I'm looking at here today. But so we brought over the pink what's in it for me, but really it's to remind me, why you guys are here and what it is that we're really hoping to show you. We want you guys to walk away from this with some quarterly business review best practices, some things that you can take back to your business right away and make actionable, okay? Some things that you can literally go out and deploy tomorrow and make your business sit in a better place. It's in pink because it's a question that I think you guys should ask yourself regularly, but it's also a question that you should ask yourself from the perspective of your customer, right? Take your quarterly business review and ask yourself from your customer's perspective, what's in it for them, right? The number one problem we hear with quarterly business reviews, in front of it takes too long, is my customers don't want to show up, okay? And that's because we haven't asked this question. What's in it for your customer when you say, here's all the tickets I closed, here's all the spams I anti-spammed, I backed up some backups, right? None of that makes sense to them. They don't care. To remind them that that's why they paid you $3,000 a month is just to remind them that they paid you $3,000 a month so they didn't have to care about that. So let's stop talking about it, okay? We've been taught to bring KPIs into and really lead with KPIs, and I want you guys to take a pivot on that and really have the conversation around what's in it for your customer. Have we delivered enough value for them to want to come to this quarterly business review? And more importantly, when we're done, did we deliver enough value for them to want to come back? Okay. So I want to talk about a QBR before we dive in too far. QBR, worst possible acronym in the industry. It's awful, right? Quarterly. Who here does QBRs quarterly with every customer? Okay. I'm going to challenge that for the 10 of you that actually do it, and I'm going to tell you don't, okay? For the rest of you who don't, do you do them for any of your customers? Is anybody here doing them for some of their customers? Okay, that's good, right? Quarterly business reviews are great for your larger clients who need it quarterly, right? A small manufacturing company who just prints mailing labels and does payroll and QuickBooks does not need to hear from you quarterly. In fact, you're bothering them, you're wasting their time. And that's why they don't want to come. You haven't delivered enough value since the last time you were here. Nothing's changed. So we're having the same conversation and we're failing to deliver value. The business part of the business review. I want you guys to really step back and think about it. Is this about their business or is it about your business? We're right back to what's in it for my customer, right? So if your business review is about your business, if it's about selling them your stack, if it's about aligning them with your best practices, if it's about how many things I did for you, Mr. Customer, to justify my existence, you failed to capture their attention, you failed to get them excited, right? And the review word is even worse than all the other ones put together because it's backwards looking, right? Cybersecurity is changing rapidly, but all of these changes are things that we know are happening now and going to happen in the future. So a review of what happened 6 months ago, or what happened a year ago with your client, is a post-mortem. If we're talking about cybersecurity post-mortem, then we're still talking about cybersecurity from 2019 that is not going to be relevant in 2022, okay? So quarterly business and review are probably some of the worst words we can use to describe this, and we still have to get our customers to show up for it. That's the challenge we're in front of. And that's what I want to talk about as we get into some of our other content. So we were kind of joking about this earlier. I like to say I'm an avid reader, but I'm not. I'm an avid listener. So my first IT Nation ever, the keynote was Jim Collins. Really bright guy. He's written a lot of really good books on business. If you haven't read them, you really should. Good to Great is a personal favorite of mine. But Jim Collins is a really bright guy because he's data-driven, and he uses data to explain business and how business works. But in 2003, Jim Collins wrote a piece for USA Today titled, Best New Year's Resolution, a Stop Doing List. Okay? Everybody makes a New Year's resolution that I'm going to go to the gym, that I'm going to start eating healthier, right? And Jim Collins would say, your New Year's resolution should be, I'm going to stop eating a cheeseburger for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. However, the pizza that I had last night at 10 o'clock was not too bad. So I want to read you guys a quote out of this article because it really struck with me, and I won't do it justice if I try to paraphrase. So Jim Collins wrote in this article, a great piece of art is composed not of what is in the final piece, but equally important, what is not. It's the discipline to discard what does not fit, to cut what might have already cost days or even years of effort, that distinguishes truly exceptional artists and marks a real great piece of work. It may be a symphony, a novel, a painting, a company, or most important of all, a life. Now Jim Collins goes on to talk about life and how you can improve your life with a stop doing list, right? I want to talk about how you can improve your company with a stop doing list. So that's what we're going to get into today. We're going to touch on 6 things that fall on your stop doing list, and I'm going to give you a couple of alternatives that are things that we can do a little bit better to propel us forward. But again, if you haven't read Jim Collins, you should. If you just Google the Jim Collins stop doing list, the entire article will pop right up. It's a pretty solid read. So we're going to get into our start and stop doing list. The first one, and I touched on this briefly, is presenting historical metrics and KPIs. How many people lead their QBR with some sort of metric? Here's what we did for you. Here's your CSAT. Here's your KPIs on backups and whatever, right? Your customer doesn't care. If you think they care, it's because you taught them to care. Unless you have a customer who is co-managed IT, that has a CISO in-house, that has some sort of metrics to match their own help desk, they don't care. We have a partner who coined the phrase service level argument, okay? That is really what an SLA is, okay? Whether or not you put SLAs in your contract, that's a conversation for you and your attorney. I never did, okay? Because I think they're just setting you up for an argument. But presenting historical KPIs, again, is looking at the wrong thing. It fails to get your customer engaged. It doesn't really set you up for where you want to be. Instead, we really want to take those things and distill them down. If you have a customer who's they're used to seeing that I closed 27 tickets and they want to know they got their money's worth, I have to present them that piece of data, guess what? Distill it down, give yourself a scorecard that's a third of a sheet of paper, half a sheet of paper, something like that. Put it on the executive summary, stick it in the back of the report, and get your customer less used to looking at it, okay? We're gonna lead with strategic information, and we'll get into a little bit of that. But if we get our customer less used to looking at that KPI stuff, eventually, we can just drop it off the report, right? Our half-page scorecard can become a third-page scorecard, can become a little cube down here in the corner, right? And that's what I'd like to see you guys have. I'd like to see you use your time and something that's more valuable to you and your customer. So, sharing the strategy. We've all fell victim to, God, Mr. Customer, I know I've been trying to schedule this meeting for 7 weeks. Will you please show up for my QBR, right? We've all been there. We all kind of find ourselves in that spot at some point. Doesn't matter whether you're doing a good job or your quarterly business reviews are bad. I've been there, and I felt like we did a pretty good job of it. But the best advice I ever got on this is something I'm going to share with you guys today, which is if you lead with the why, if you lead with the what's in it for my customer, they'll want to show up. If cybersecurity is the why, they don't want to be there, right? It's scary, it's big, it's nebulous, they don't understand it, and they can just stick their head in the sand, play ostrich, and ignore it. So really what we want to do is lead with an agenda. 2 to 3 weeks before your quarterly business review, and when you introduce the concept to your customer that you want them to show up for one, send them an agenda. And leave some blanks in the agenda to tell your customer, Mr. Customer, I'd like to come prepared to talk about all of the topics that concern you. So do me a favor. In the blanks in the agenda, go ahead and fill in for me what's changed in your business. What's new and exciting? How are you making it out through COVID? Are you growing? Are you adding customers? Are you adding locations? Are we going to hire salespeople? what's changing in your business so that I can come prepared to talk about how that's going to impact your technology solutions, your capacity, your scalability, whether or not we have everything we need for these folks, if we need to do projects or anything else, right? So if we lead with that agenda, we're gonna get a customer who's more engaged. But the best trick to leading with the agenda is when the customer comes back and says, you know, Matt was a jerk on the last service ticket, and I'm mad. Has anybody ever had a QBR that derailed? You come in with all your paperwork and everything, and you're like, I know exactly what we're gonna talk about, I'm gonna freaking kill it today, I'm gonna get him to do this project, and then they come out and say, Matt was a jerk. And before we get into that, we're gonna talk about why Matt's a jerk.
Doesn't actually happen.
But it's happened to all of us, right? It sucks. It blows your whole. You got your mojo. You're feeling it. Then you get in there and you're like, I'll go back to the office and beat Matt. You're like, can we talk about the stuff that's in my file? Because I want to talk about my stuff, right? So the minute they respond on their agenda and say, I have a service delivery issue that I need to talk about, I'm going to pick up the phone because those things still work nowadays. And it's not just tickets. We can pick up the phone. I'm going to pick up the phone and I'm going to call my customer and I'm going to go, Mr. Customer, your satisfaction is way too important to me to wait 14 days when I'm sitting across the table from you to talk about this. I want to fix this right now. Should I go in the back and beat Matt? Okay. But by the time we get through with this conversation, guess what? I've renewed my relationship with my customer. They're happy with me again. I've promised that I'm going to fix things. I'm going to fire Matt. Okay. But when I get to go see the customer, they're going to be happy with me. And there's a lot of psychology out there that actually says that you do better with a customer after you've apologized for something. They have a little more empathy for you after you've apologized for something than they do when you're just having a regular interaction with them. There's sales psychology that says apologize for the rainy day. Even though it's not your fault, there's nothing you can do, because your customer will have empathy for you and feel bad for you and be more likely to buy from you, okay? That's not the silliest thing I've ever heard, whatever. But if we go apologize for a real, true service delivery problem, it actually puts us in a better place with our customer in 2 or 3 weeks when we walk in to have a meeting. So the agenda may be one of the most powerful pieces of the entire toolkit. Nobody likes being sold. I actually had a customer tell me, if you come knock on my door with an invoice one more time, I'm gonna go out and get a shotgun out of my truck. And he was right. I went down and said, knock, knock, Windows 7's dead, I need 20 grand, right? I should have given him more notice, I should have done a better job. And I learned my lesson because he was scary. He was a redneck from southern Delaware and he had a shotgun rack in the back of his truck. So blindside selling. How many of us have gone to a QBR with a project where our customer had no idea was coming and gone, so let's talk about this. It's going to cost a good bit of money, right? We've all done it, I hope. Otherwise, I'm the only one. But what we really want to do is make sure our customer doesn't feel sold to in a quarterly business review. There's some really good language that, again, I said to Jason Slagle when he was sitting up here before he ran out of the room because it was getting full. Nothing new has been learned in sales in the last 200 years. Nothing new has been invented in sales well before my lifetime. And the same is true when we start talking about nobody likes being sold, and there are some pretty simple presentation concepts. So I stole this from somebody else, who stole it from somebody else, who stole it from somebody else. But the best language that you can use when you have to go present something new to a customer, we're going to assess cybersecurity risk. We're going to lead with that as part of our conversation. We're not going to tell our customer we're having a cybersecurity review. We're going to have a cybersecurity meeting. We're going to have a business conversation. We're going to talk about where you are. We're going to talk about where you're going. Call it whatever you want internally to your customers. Hey, Mr. Customer, the landscape's changing a lot. But when we get in front of them, when we have to present something we have to actually sell to them, because we do, we have to sell them new things, but we don't want them to feel sold. So we're going to use this line, or a line similar to it. Mr. Customer, unfortunately, we've really exposed or identified a lot of risk as the landscape has changed and as we've continued to do the same thing here. How do you want to address that risk? Yeah.
Kind of going off of this, the stop blindside selling, would you also say, you know, beneficial to start looking at like IT roadmaps, and so we're looking at
Absolutely.
3 years.
Absolutely. I'll get to that. Okay. You're 3 slides ahead of yourself, maybe, but yes. But once we present risk and exposure to our clients, we need to be very clear, right? We know what the cybersecurity landscape looks like. We know what the cyber insurance landscape looks like. Another pretty smart guy said to me, I bought a $5 million cyber policy. It was the biggest one I could buy. If 10 of my customers get breached, this only pays for half of it. If all of my customers get breached, I'm done. Like, I can't buy enough insurance for all of this to be my problem. So the conversation I have with my customers has to be very open and very honest. And then, Mr. Customer, how would you like to address your risk? Because at the end of the day, it's his risk, not mine, or at the very least, it's shared risk, but we're just here to help them address it, and we need to get them to help address it. So it doesn't have to be a sales pitch, it doesn't have to be a sales quote, it doesn't have to be, you know, push a solution down their throat, right? Address the real reasons in the business, what could realistically happen if there was a breach, what could realistically happen if we don't put a finger in the hole in the dam, and have those conversations. But I just really love that line, which is, Mr. Customer, how are we going to address your risk? How are we going to address the risk that we've uncovered here? And you know, just one thing to say, you know, our tools have never been better. This is not the golden age. It's not a thing. I wanted to go chasing with that one, but he wasn't here. But we have better tools than we've ever had. We know what risks our customers have. We have tools like Cyber CNS and Network Detective to scan networks. We have real-time monitoring on networks. Our tools are scary, but they're also the best they've ever been. We have the option to uncover more risk than we've ever been able to. So get that stuff in front of your customers. Let them make informed decisions about the risk that they own, and you'll wind up in a better place. Surprise selling. We're back to stop surprising your clients with large projects. This is exactly what I did with my guy. Surprise, 20 grand, Windows 7's dead. He's only mad because I had done the exact same thing 5 years earlier. Surprise, Windows XP's dead, I need 20 grand, right? That's why he was mad, because I didn't learn the first time. So we need to stop this. We need to start, and this is where you got a couple of slides ahead of yourself. We need to start leading with something that's even more important than our, agenda document, which is a budget. Okay? Nobody knows better how long our clients' assets are going to be good, how long they're going to be usable, than us. We can't expect a CFO to write a budget for a technology stack, right? We have to do that. How many people here are presenting at least some form of a budget to your customers? Put your hands up and leave them up, okay? Longer than a year. Put your hands down if you're not presenting longer than a year. Longer than 3 years, okay? I'm gonna argue to you that 5 years is the length of time that you need to present a budget to your customer. Because that's how long it takes to capture the ebbs and flows that live in a budget, right? We have a customer in our system that I go look at, and he's got $40,000 in expense this year, $90,000, $30,000, $150,000, and their swing looks like this, right? And if I show you an 18-month budget, you can't capture that. You can't tell your customer what it's gonna look like in 2024 when I have to go, surprise, I need a big fat check, right? So we need to get this stuff in front of them early, we need to get it in front of them often, and it enables us to have better conversations. Mr. Customer, are you able, with your business model, with your funding model, with whatever it is, I mean, nonprofits especially, you know, they really want to see a super flatline budget, right? I worked with some municipalities that just didn't care. They're like, we'll encumber the money in the budget, and it'll be there, and we'll be okay. But you need to have that conversation with your customer. You can't do it unless you show them that budget. So budget is absolutely necessary. It is the #1 mic drop moment for our customers. When they walk out to their client and say, here's what you're gonna spend for the next 3 to 5 years, and this is the big scary year. Do you wanna do some leasing? Should we talk about hardware as a service? Can I help get you through that? Do you wanna buy some stuff early, keep some stuff too long? Yes.
What do you suggest putting into the budget? Like, are we looking at also adding in, like, what are they spending on their MRR with us every month?
I would argue you go way beyond that, okay? What goes in my budget? Every technology-based contract, subscription, renewal, warranty replacement, hardware asset, software asset, all of it. I want their cable bill, I want their Salesforce bill, I want how much they spend for Dropbox, I want to know how much they pay to the copier guy, I want all of it, okay? And here's why. If I go into my customer who has a annual Salesforce renewal of $80,000 every March 31st, I go in on 1st of April and go, hey, we gotta replace the server, 20 grand. What are my odds of getting that deal closed, right? But if I know that there's 80 grand there in spend, and I can break their budget down and say, I see your 80 grand in spend here, we've got this risk, 2 slides back, we've got this risk on the server, we've got to replace it. Do you want to do it 3 months before that or 3 months after that, or do you need 6 months? When do you want to replace it? And because I use a budget, I get to lay out the funding for them, I can show them where their expenses are, and I no longer ask, would you like to replace this asset? That's sales pitch, right? Would you like to buy this project? But if I say, when would you like to address a server that's going out of warranty, I'm no longer selling to them. I'm just having a consultation. I'm having the same conversation with them that their CFO would have, that their COO would have, that their CTO would have if I was an internal employee in that company, right? So the budget leads me to not having to be the slimy salesman we were talking about earlier, but to be the guy who says, I have facts, your assets are getting old, your software is getting old, you have bills that are due, when would we like to address these things, right? So So that's how I recommend it. We get great feedback from our partners, and that's kind of what they're seeing. Okay. Don't let perfect be the enemy of good. This is almost a like the little cult corner line at Lifecycle Insights. We use it all the time, right? We defeat the blank page and we don't let perfect be the enemy of good, right? This is how we do a lot of our corny marketing, like Lifecycle Insights stuff sucks, right? We find something, we run with it, we get it out the door, and we iterate on it later, okay? That's not to say to do that with your security products, okay? Let's get them right before we get there. But your QBR does not have to be perfect the first time you go to see your customer. Understand that this is a new process. You're not going to get it right the first time. As you start to iterate and change it, you'll pick your customers who will let you make a mistake. You have customers you have a great relationship with, right? You have people like Matt that I can pick on. We got people that we know that we have a relationship with that'll let me screw up, okay? Find those people, start where you are, go meet with them, and iterate on your process. As we iterate on that process, it'll get a little better every time. Get stuff done. Right?
Thank you.
So,
I was curious.
don't wait till it's perfect. Get stuff done. Okay? I've heard from way too many MSPs that they don't want to go present to their client because there's one more thing they want to get done, or there's one more thing they're not comfortable with, or they don't know where to start, they don't know where to finish, they don't know what perfect looks like. This does not have to be perfect. Your customer understands technology is changing super rapidly. In fact, blame the software in your industry, okay? Until last year, there wasn't any good software out there to run a QBR for your customer. And then 5 platforms showed up to do it. And at least one of them is good. So, now that there's software to do it, you can go to your customer and say, hey, before I had to do this on spreadsheets, and I couldn't get all the data, and it was just impossible to cobble it all together. But guess what? I invested in your success. I bought a tool, and now I can do this for you. And you can still do the spreadsheets. It works. If you're a masochist, you can spend a lot of time doing it. But now that we have solutions that can do this, now that we have processes that are better defined, and honestly, as the solutions came along, the partners kind of circled around the solutions and said, hey, this is good, but we need more, we need better, we need different, and the solutions are maturing, right? So the products in the industry are getting better. So as they get better, the processes will get better, and then the products will get better again. I'm getting told I'm running out of time because I talk too much. Last one. You thought our CEO was the math nerd. She actually wasn't a math teacher. CS equals CE plus CO. Does anybody know what any of those are? Customer success equals customer experience plus customer outcomes. Okay? Our number one job as an MSP is to be a managed customer success provider. If you provide success for your customers, I stole that from her. I'm not that bright, I'm just here to be pretty. Customer experience, we talk about it a lot, right? Don't hide behind ticket systems, engage with your customers. Customer outcomes are really what matter. And it's where we have previously failed our MSP customers, right? We've worried about us, we haven't worried about them. We whiffed, we didn't what's in it for my customer. So we need to go out and look at our customer outcomes, figure out what they're trying to use technology to solve for, and bind that around customer experience, deliver it nice, deliver it clean, deliver it plain, and then we will deliver an actual customer success model that works. So stop wondering about your customer experience and start asking the value every single time. How many of you guys close your quarterly business review by asking your customer if they wasted their time today? Nobody. Okay? My favorite question in a QBR is what kind of value did we deliver here today? Okay? If you ask what kind of value you delivered, you're going to get one of 2 answers. This was great. It's exactly what I needed to see. The budget's awesome. You broke things down to me so they're manageable. Or, can we not do this again for another year? Okay. If you get the meh answer, then your immediate next question: what could we do better or different to deliver more value to you? Okay. If your customer says this is awesome, this is exactly what I needed, what's the next thing you're going to say? We can schedule later, because I'm going to answer with, I'm so glad that you see value in what we're doing. We put a lot of work into this process. And it's uncomfortable for me to even ask this sometimes, but part of my job is growing my business. Is there anybody else who might see value in the same kind of conversations around their own technology?
Yes.
Oh my God, a QBR just turned into a referral. The number one question on the entire freaking internet right now is how do I grow my MSP? How do I get new leads? Right? That's how you do it. Okay? So we can use the QBR process to generate leads. And we're going to fly through a couple of slides here real quick because I'm way out of time. Here is the, if anybody wants to grab a picture of these, or if you email me later, I'll send you the slide deck. You can have the deck. But we're going to stop using KPIs to drive the conversation. We're going to stop begging people to show up. We're going to use an agenda to lead the horse to water. We're going to stop blindside selling, stop surprising our clients with large projects. We're going to stop letting perfect PDM be good. We're going to get some shit done, right? And we're going to stop wondering about what our customer experience is. We're going to know, okay? Because we're going to summarize what's important. We're going to deliver an executive summary that allows us to shrink the pieces of KPI and KRO data that we don't care about. We're going to start giving our clients a reason to attend with an agenda that's focused around them. We're going to help our clients manage their risk. We're going to budget in advance. We're going to show them what 2025 is going to look like and warn them about the bad year early. We're going to automate as much of our process as we can to get stuff done and iterate. And then we're going to ask our customers if we've delivered value, because that's the way that we know that we're winning. Okay? So with that, what now? The QBR process is still big. It's still looming. It's still a monster. So my advice, automate where you can. Put human eyes on where you cannot. Right? Risk assessments still require human interaction. Building a budget does not. Okay, that's just an example. But a budget should be automated. You should be able to click a button. It should just print. Your risk assessment still needs a little bit of human interaction to say, yes, they have my favorite firewall deployed, but is it configured correctly? Right? There are still questions that a human has to answer. I will skip a couple of those and give you guys the link here. If you want to download a copy of the quarterly business review that I put out for my customers, it'll be right there. This is what I call the QBR your customer deserves. Okay. And then,
Give it a second, Alex.
questions,
Alex,
anything
go
else?
back for a sec.
Got it, I'm sorry. I've way overstayed my welcome.
So we fill out the form and it emails us?
Yep,
Yep.
don't worry, we're not big spammers.
I don't believe you.
right.
I don't believe you.
We're medium spammers, medium spammers. And if you guys want to stay in, oh, it didn't save here, but that's okay. Jason told me there's a map that shows where the booths are. So and it also was supposed to say, come by and see us at our booth. But if you go in the exhibit hall back right, we'll be hanging out at the booth for the rest of the day. Please hang out with me on LinkedIn. I don't do any selling on LinkedIn, but we will put some content out there that will help you guys. We can stay in touch, and you can ask me questions. If you have questions, if you couldn't tell, this is something I'm kind of passionate about. Just so, so if you want to have a conversation without a sales pitch, just don't tell me that. Right? Don't tell me anything. I just want to ask you some questions. Happy to have that conversation. I'll stick around afterwards, give you guys some cards if you have questions. And if anybody wants the slide deck, just drop me your card and I'll email the slide deck. And that's a wrap, guys. Thank you so much for coming.